Yeah. Then I think that's
She's awake. I'm holding my breath. Wait. Yes. Sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tabang Masango, and I'm the Vice Chairperson of Golden Keys UP chapter. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this year's Golden Summit. The topic of this year is Beyond Graduation, Navigating the Post-University Landscape with Purpose and Impact. To delve deeper into this topic, we will have a panel discussion with some amazing guests who will provide their own thoughts and experiences on the topic. To lead the panel discussion, our MC for today's event is Ms. Taylor Jonker. Taylor is 27 years old and hails from the vibrant town of Benoni.
Shout out East Rand.
With a BCom in Market Management from the University of Pretoria, where she also completed her honors and masters. Taylor is a proud Takkies member through and through. Currently, she's making waves as a full-time staff member at the University of Pretoria, running the institution-wide academic support program, also known as Fly at UP. When she's not busy empowering students, you can find her conquering physical challenges like half marathons. Though she humbly claims no remarkable achievements yet, Taylor takes pride in being gainfully employed since the age of 14. Her journey is a testament to resilience and purpose, qualities that make her the perfect guide as we explore life beyond graduation. Ms. Jonker, the floor is yours.
She just said that.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your Saturday to come and join us, and also live. Before I start anything, I don't know if this is the correct order, but I also want to thank Tabang and Leandra. Well done for this awesome event. I'm very excited for this panel. I think it's going to be a great chat that we're going to have. But first and foremost, I'd like to more formally introduce each of our panel members through a short little bio of each of them, so you can get a better background of the amazing people sitting here right next to me. So I'll start on my very left with David. So David is currently a student at the University of Pretoria, completing a PhD in International Relations under the Centre for Mediation in Africa. He was the first ever African to have been elected as Prime Minister of the Commonwealth Youth Parliament that is comprised of 54 countries. He was also the inaugural country ambassador for South Africa to the Unite 2030 initiative, which deals with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Moreover, he oversees transitional justice youth development in Southern Africa as regional representative for the African Union Youth for Transitional Justice Continental Platform, where he was certified as a youth expert in the African Union Transitional Justice Policy by the AU Department for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. What a mouthful. Well done. Well done. He is also currently a national Fundi influencer. He elected for 2 consecutive terms as the Student Representative Council President of the University of Pretoria as an independent candidate, where he oversaw 60,000 students across 7 campuses. He was the first president to be re-elected for a second term. Well done. He served for 2 terms on the National General Council of South African Union of Students. David has also served as the chairperson of Minimum Wage Commission in the Gauteng Youth Sector Parliament, and was the first ever first-year student elected to chair a faculty house at the University of Pretoria. He is also currently the head of operations for Southern Africa at the Centre for Commonwealth Affairs, and the president of MOVE, a newly formed youth-led political party, and is a member of the National Leadership Collective of Rise and Zanzibar, which is represented in Parliament. In terms of David's education, he has a Bachelor of Political Sciences, a Bachelor of Arts Honours degree in International Relations, a Master's of Diplomatic Studies, and he is currently doing his PhD. All of these achievements he got through the University of Pretoria. In terms of awards, I'm going to shorten this. He was the Junior Chamber International Top 10 Outstanding Young Persons in South Africa in the category of politics. Well done. Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South Africans. Inaugural recipient of the University of Pretoria Faculties of Humanities Dean's Award. Two-time recipient of the University of Pretoria Student Representative Council Member of the Year Award. Inaugural recipient of the Hope Givers Foundation in association with Brand South Africa and the National Lotteries Commission Raising Legends Award in the category Academia, Advocacy and the Leadership for work done to combat gender-based violence through the Body Child Initiative. Two-time South African national medalist in the South African Modern Pentathlon Association Laser Run. World Championship gold medalist of the Union International Pentathlon Modern Laser Run. I'm not too sure what those two are.
Those are Olympic sports, we'll get into that.
Whoa. So that is David. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. Then next to David we have the lovely Lerato. Lerato is an experienced expert in public administration and management, passionately committed to leveraging education and the public sector for transformative impact. She is a University of Pretoria graduate and is currently completing her PhD as well. Lerato's academic journey at Tux is marked by excellence. She was a student leader and obtained her degrees cum laude. She also received multiple academic awards from institutions such as the SPMA, Tux Res, Alan Gray, the National Research Foundation, and Golden Key, as well as securing a spot on the Dean's List. In addition to her academic achievements, Lerato mentors aspiring young Black female academics and also serves as an industry mentor to candidate fellows of the Alan Gray Fellowship Program. Lerato's exemplary leadership is evident in her various roles and achievements. She has demonstrated her leadership abilities through her roles as the subject chairperson for the Public Administration subject group during her tenure at the Northwest University School of Government Studies. Her capabilities have also been recognized on an international level, highlighted by her selection as a finalist for the McKinsey & Company Next Generation Women Leadership Award and a representation of South Africa in the 2023 Mandela Washington Fellowship at Harvard University in Washington, D.C. Howard, sorry. Lerato is also a passionate advocate for equity and justice in higher education, striving to create pathways for success for students from disadvantaged backgrounds and ensuring their academic professional success. In advancing this work, she currently serves as an executive committee member of the EMS Faculty's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Moreover, she initiated and co-facilitates a food bank at the SPMA, which has grown to support students from various faculties within the University of Pretoria, addressing the critical issue of food security among students. She also runs the Public Administration Trailblazers WhatsApp channel, connecting public administration students and graduates to academic, personal, and professional development opportunities, aiming to cultivate the next generation of innovative leaders in the public service. Lerato's dedication to practical education and equitable student success is exemplified in her roles as the academic coordinator for the SPMA's flagship internship program, which she co-designed and co-manages in partnership with PSETA and 10 public sector institutions. This strategic partnership enhances graduate employability while addressing industry needs. Lerato is not just a lecturer. She is a visionary leader striving for justice, equality, and equity in higher education. Her contributions ensure that the future of South Africa's public service
is in capable and compassionate hands. And last but not least, Ndavi. Ndavi is an investment professional who graduated with a BCom investment degree from the University of Pretoria. I think we need to chat about my investments. She was crowned Miss South Africa in 2022 and represented her country at the 71st Miss Universe in New Orleans. She landed successfully in the top 16, being the highest placing African represented in 2022. Currently, she works in an angel investing business. Angle. I can't read. I'm not part of Golden Key. Investing business, where she assists many African startup companies to receive funding. Her work in the angel investing industry aims to upskill entrepreneurs in their small businesses, and she continues to build her own brand as well. Ndavi's biggest passion is empowering the youth and reducing inequality. So through her foundation, the Ndavi Nokeri, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, Foundation, she runs a campaign, Ed Unite. Ed Unite is a conduit between big corporations and schools or communities in need, ensuring corporate social investments towards equitable education. Listen carefully. She has raised close to 2 million rand, which has gone towards sanitary towels, school uniforms, and bursaries for students in need. That is incredible. Ndavi will soon be launching her podcast, built around the conversations of faith, finances, and fitness. Love that. She aims to inspire young women across the world to be bold about their faith and living well-balanced lives. Very important. Ndavi has been featured in multiple magazine issues like True Love Magazine, Glamour South Africa, Vogue Philippines, and many more. Thank you for joining us. All right, so as I think we can all establish, we are amongst royalty, dare I say. All your achievements are incredibly remarkable, and thank you for joining us today. So let's get on to the panel and let's get chatting. So our panel topic, just to reiterate, is Beyond Graduation, Navigating the Post-University Landscape with Purpose and Impact, which all three of these leaders are definitely doing. Okay, so first question or section is building a professional foundation. So I would like to aim this first question at David, so get ready. What steps can graduates take immediately after university to build a strong professional network?
Right, I appreciate that, and once again, gratitude to Golden Key for the invitation. It's such a privilege. That's a brilliant question upon which we will begin the conversation. So when we speak about developing a professional network, there are two major considerations, and the very first one is that we do not make the mistake of beginning our network only when we obtain our certifications and degrees. What you will find is that the highest turnover of success that young people have had upon finishing their education has come from the networks they've leveraged while being in an institutional space. And the reason why I say this and emphasize the importance thereof is because when we are in a space such as a university, you will find that I like to call it a university because it's a whole new universe. You have a number of connections that you can start to make. And these connections are what you can leverage when you enter into the professional space. So the notion that, yes, I'll get my degree and then I'll figure things out from there is one of the biggest mistakes that we make. So starting early becomes very important. And it's literally beginning with what you have and where you are. It's looking at your department, it's looking at your classrooms, the societies on campus. Most of the networks that I've been able to build have come from just random conversations I would have with people. I'll give a very simple example. I got a DM from the French embassy, and I was very surprised. So I called them and said, I got a DM from your account. Is this actually you? And they said, yes, Dave, we'd like to have a meeting. I said, great. Why? I said, well, we were at a conference and you stood up and you made an excellent point. So we looked into you and we like what you say, so we want to work with you. And that opened a bunch of channels where I now work with a number of embassies around Pretoria, and that happened within the university, just showing up for one of the events that we had. So what you'll find is your network begets a network. So your network allows you to access more people, because when you, I believe that from today we now have a shared network. So my network becomes yours, it becomes yours, and we begin to circulate on this. That's the first thing. We start right now. You do not have to wait. The second element, once you have started after university, is to ensure that you begin to formulate a plan. There's a good old saying that if you do not plan, then you plan to fail. And let me tell you, that hit me very hard. So I immediately started planning all the time. I plan my weeks probably 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks in advance. I have a calendar. Matter of fact, I have a 15-year plan that I call Operation Divine Destination. Things will not always go according to plan, but what you will find is that planning does two things. It allows you to maintain a sense of security, because when we finish university, there's a great sense of uncertainty. Oftentimes that creates anxiety and it delays our process of getting started. So planning gives you kind of that sense that you are doing something. Secondly, when you plan, you get to identify what it is you are lacking. When you know what you are lacking, you know where your focus area should be, and that invites you to invest in where you can begin looking to develop your network, because your network has strengths, it has weaknesses. Leverage your strengths, build on your weaknesses, and you will find that your network grows quite quickly.
Thank you, David.
I wholeheartedly agree with, don't wait until you finished university and you had your degree. It starts, like I said, I think the only great achievement I've ever had is since the age of 14, 13. It does sound bad, but I mean, it wasn't child labor or anything, but I was working at a restaurant, and I was making connections, chatting to customers, and that's what I've done throughout my whole life and career. That's how I landed my job at the university. Is don't wait until you have that shiny paper. Great to have it, aim for it, fly a 2P, please, but chat, make networks, get yourself involved. If you find that your group of friends aren't elevating you, aren't move to a new room, join panels, join lives. You need to network to really get yourself to the next level. And it's simple as another story. I bumped into you once upon a time when I was a student, David, and just random network, but it was, I think you were campaigning for your first term as SLC president. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really know you, but I heard via my network about you, and then I bumped into you, and you just were like, hey, what's up? And I was like, I feel like he knows me, but you didn't know me. And I was always like, I've always known you. And that's a weird way to explain a network, but it's like when Golden Key was like, David's coming, I was like, oh, I actually know him. Loki, you're part of my network. So it's very important. Get networking right away. Lorato and Ndavi, do you have anything to add about this point?
I don't have much to add, but I absolutely agree with everything you said. Don't wait until you're done with university. Start immediately. I think we underestimate the people around us. You know, you think, oh, it's just my lecturer, oh, it's just my mate here, but you don't know their parents and where they work. It might be helpful for you in the future. So yeah, I think definitely don't underestimate the people that are around you and the societies in university. Like I was also a part of the EMS faculty committee. That's where also I started building my network. So all these little things seem little, but they're really big for you to start building your network.
And I think just to add to that, I mean, I've had conversations with students around networking, and it seems like something so daunting to them when they hear the word networking. They're like, what do I say? Where do I start? And I'm like, just see it as building relationships. And don't be selective, as they both alluded to, about who's worthy of building a relationship with when you're in any context. Even, you know, the support staff, the cleaning ladies, the security guards. I've been in situations where I literally needed to be somewhere for a really big opportunity, and life happened, traffic happened, and I get to the place and there's only one place where I can park, and it's going to take me longer to get, so I'm definitely going to be late. But because of how I'd engaged with the security guard, they went out of their way to make sure that I get to that meeting on time. And so when you build relationships, don't look down on anyone. Humility. if you don't learn to be humble, life will humble you. It will always find a way to teach you to be humble. So see networking as building relationships. The people right next to you, the student in class who may not seem like they say a lot, they have a lot to say, especially when you're doing group work and we've put you into groups and you didn't want to work with those people, and because you've got the accolades, you feel like you should take up space. Absolutely take up space, but taking up space also shows up in you being able to allow other people to take up space, and then you're able to learn from them and see what they can also offer you as well. So yeah, definitely don't look down on anyone, build relationships, it's really important. I'm here today and I see this as an incredible opportunity because I built a relationship with Tabang, who's one of the students in our department. And when I asked him, why did you pick me for this? And he said, I felt like this is something, a conversation that you're passionate about and could make a valuable contribution in. And that's because when we engage, I don't see him as a student, I see him as an equal. I sit in their office, we've got another one of our tutors here, they know they can walk into my office, we sit, we talk, and I never want them to see me as somebody above them or see themselves as below me. We are equals, and in that way I'm able to learn so much from them as well. They helped me set up my WhatsApp channel. I do not even know how to do it. But so don't look down on anyone, please.
I think just to also add on to what you said about see it as building relationships. I think a lot of people think, networking is so difficult. I used to be that person. I used to think, how on earth do I network? I'm so bad at networking. And I used to think that. And I don't think anyone can really be bad at networking. I think the main thing about networking is speaking. What are you passionate about? What do you do? A lot of times we think that we need to sell ourselves, like, okay, so pitch, like a quick pitch, elevator pitch. No, it's not about selling yourself. If you talk about the things you're passionate about, you will connect to the people that are passionate about the same things. You don't have to convince someone to help you. You will connect automatically. And if you don't, that's fine. You're not going to be in alignment with everybody. So I think another thing that makes it daunting is us thinking that, oh my goodness, I have to sell myself, they have to get this. No, you will find your people. If you know what you're about, it's easier to attract the same people. Yeah.
Thank you, Ndavi. I'm actually very glad we have this one microphone set up because I'm Italian, so I'm wanting to jump in, and we need to give everyone a chance to speak. All right, so I'd like to move on to the next question, and I'd like to direct it to Lerato. I think it's quite an appropriate question for you. So, how important is mentorship in the early stages of a career? And how can graduates find mentors who align with their values and career goals?
I think it goes without saying that mentorship is incredibly important, but what I have learned, thinking back to my time as a graduate, as a student and graduate, so I was part of this Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation, and as part of the program we got industry mentors. And I mean, with Ellen Gray, you could literally ask them for anyone, literally your heart's desire, ask them for anyone. And they would go out of their way to find these people for you. And I had incredible mentors, but I realized, I think probably once I started working, how much I did not make the most of those relationships because I really did not take the time to know who I am. And if you don't know who you are, and you come into this mentorship relationship, your mentor, you can't expect your mentor to tell you who you are. Yeah. And in some of these relationships that I had, these mentorship relationships, I did have mentors who did tell me who I was, and I believed them. And I started pursuing a vision and a dream for my life that really wasn't mine. Yeah. But it was projected onto me by somebody else, and I mean, they were trying to help, because I did not seem clear on what I wanted to do. I went into these relationships expecting them to have all the answers, but I didn't take the time to really sit with myself, understand myself, where I was, even as a second, third year student, just who am I right now? You know, and if you can't really answer that question, then you need to pursue the answer to that question. And a lot of the times we expect these answers to just find us, like, oh no, I'll just, and they do find you as you are pursuing the answers to these questions. And so, I mean, when I look back, I think back to some of the mentors, I'm like, oh my goodness, I had such amazing people, but I didn't make the most of those relationships because I went in there not really knowing what exactly I needed from them. I could not define what support I needed from them. I allowed them to drive the relationship. And remember with mentorship, it's really about you and your journey. So as a mentor, when I meet up with my mentees, I always ask them, how would you like me to serve you? And if the mentee can't tell me that, then we start by understanding who you are. So we have activities where they really can understand themselves, because I can't help you in a journey that you are not clear about. What is my role there? I have my own purpose for my life, and I'd like to use what I've learned to help you in your journey. But if you don't know what your purpose is and you haven't started exploring that, you are not going to be able to leverage the most out of these relationships. So mentorships are absolutely important, but you really need to take the time to know yourself. A lot of the times we pride ourselves in knowing other people, the boyfriends, the girlfriends, and the partners, and everything in between, and we're like, you know, I know this one, I know you like the back of my hand, but do you know yourself that well as well? Everybody, when you talk about interviews, everybody finds the tell me about yourself question so daunting. And I'm like, tell me about you. You know, but you can't really speak about yourself. And my advice is always strip away. I mean, you read quite a long list of our accolades, but take away all those labels. What remains? And if we can still tell you who we are without any of those things, take that to your mentorship relationships and see the kind of magic you'll create with your mentor. It's a partnership. They're not there to impose their own ideas of who you're supposed to be, but they're partnering with you. So mentorships are absolutely important. Like I said, my advice is first start with yourself. At times when you're in university, I know at Tax you've got the STARS mentorship program, so the first years are given mentors. Use that to the best. Whatever the mentor, I mean, I think at first year you're still pretty much confused, you're not sure of what's happening, you're still trying to figure out the entire university system, and I think about how best the mentor can serve you where you are. So being self-aware and being very honest with yourself about where you are and who you are at that moment is really going to help you in your mentorship relationships. Yeah.
In complete agreement, and I just want to extrapolate upon that point. I'll give a very simple story. Once upon a time, I was a model for about 6 months, accidentally. And I remember during this time, I'll tell you about that later, but I remember during this time I went to do a shoot for Muvhango. It was, I think, my second shoot ever. I was very excited. I'm a young man from Limpopo, first time at Auckland Park, SABC. I was feeling it. And I show up, and when I arrive, I am met by a young man, and he says, "Man, you are ugly. I have no clue who this guy is." I'm like, "Okay, well, my dude, you were over there. You came here to speak to me. I appreciate that. It means you thought I was worth your time. Thank you." He looks at me and he says, "Well, you know what? Look at your pimples. Look at your nose. It is, just look at you." And I said, "Well, the way you describe my face, only human beings have faces that way. So you're saying I'm human. Thank you, my brother." And he looks at me and he says, "Man, I hate you." And I said, "Well, hate is a strong emotion, so you're saying you feel strongly about me. You know what? You are too kind." And I deflated the man so quickly. And the reason why is because, like you mentioned, I was very sure about my identity. And whenever I have the opportunity to speak about my identity, I'm very much unashamed to say my identity is founded in my belief system. My belief system is Christ. I believe who you want to believe, but for me, I'm unashamed about that. Now, when I link this back to the question of mentorship, I remember when I was in SRC, Most people don't know what the SRC deals with. They deal with everything, just about a lot. So I found out at one stage I was the first ever, well, among the only presidents that was not suicidal. And I found this to be a very strange statistic. And I'm going to speak very candidly because I don't want to trigger anyone. But someone came and asked me, how is it that you are on the ball all the time? If you ever meet me, I never have a bad day. Not because my days are not bad, but because I choose not to have a bad day. One of the ways that assisted me was my support system, going back to the mentors. So before I started my journey, I found out who I am and identified 3 mentors. The first is my pastor, the second is a youth counselor, and the third is my mentor in politics. She worked with Obama, she worked with Clinton, she has an amazing mind. Whenever I'm going through anything, I would always have a sounding board to bounce off of, and oftentimes I would debate. And that's the thing I'm very grateful about my mentors, is their logic is amazing. So either I will convince you or you will convince me, but some way we're gonna find a way forward. And like you said, it's very important to understand that a mentor is not an overlord. So it's not as if your mentor's law is word. And I think even until today, I'm still seeing the positive impact of the mentors that I have had. So I just want to appreciate that point. I hope you realize how profound that is. And I mean that. The investment guru will tell you that these are things people will normally pay to hear. So, Matt, shout out. Very good.
Thank you very much, Lorato and David, for your points. And I again, agree so much. We're all like-minded people here. And I think for both of these, in terms of your professional network and your mentors, I think maybe sometimes as students and young adults, we make it into a very formal, scary thing. And a mentor could very well just be a classmate of yours that has maybe started up a side hustle and he or she's doing amazing, or they are doing amazing things, and you can actually seek mentorship even from just a friend. It doesn't have to be a scary staff member or someone from Alan Gray. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not disrespecting. I'm just saying mentorship can really be found in any form, and the same with networking. And I think sometimes as students you feel this pressure of, I need to be in the biggest room with the biggest names, and I need to get the best mentor, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. Your lives are complicated enough and busy enough. Seek mentorship in a friend, your parents, or the pastor. So just something to also just take home.
I love that David spoke about how he finds his identity in Christ, which is such an important thing as well when you're seeking out a mentor. A lot of the times we look for people who are doing so well financially, like this person is so rich, so therefore let them be my mentor. But you don't know the processes and the decisions and the commitments and responsibilities that that person has that might not be in alignment with your belief system and your values. So you need to make sure that their values and how they think also aligns with who you are as a person, because you might fall under their mentorship, and like she said, they're trying to help, so they will help you, and you might end up creating a life that you hate, because you followed in their leadership, but the fact that you didn't check the value system, did that align? Because that is very important. Yeah.
Before I move on, Leandre, Taban, anything to add? Okay. Just holler if you want to. You are part of the panel. We would love to also hear from you. I'm just thinking now you guys are just sitting there and smiling.
You're wondering why the panel looks so pretty.
All right, so Ndavi, I'd like to aim the next question at you. So, how can graduates identify and pursue employment opportunities that align with their values and desires to make a positive impact?
Such an interesting question. I think first of all, we make positive impact like such a huge thing that's so far out of reach. Something I learned very early in life is that you can make a positive impact from absolutely anywhere. Wherever you are, the position that you have is a position that can assist someone who's not where you are. Like we look at ourselves and we always compare ourselves to someone who's ahead of us, but we never see the fact that we are ahead of someone else, right? And if you can just stop to look back, you can see how you can reach out a hand to help someone else. So first of all, just note that wherever you are already in a position to make a positive impact. I remember when I first did my first pageant outside of school, it was called Miss Josie. And what I realized during the pageant is that it forced me to do something. So I always told myself, I want to help, I want to help. But we tell ourselves that no, we need like a foundation, or we need someone else to come and force us, or it's the end of the year, or you feel like some sort of feel to help. But because of that pageant, I lived up what I always wanted to do. And I think as humans, we all have that in our hearts. We want to help, we want to do something, but we're always waiting for that push to step out, right? So you are that push. When you see something, let it be a trigger for you to do something about it. And now in my formal employment, like you mentioned when you're reading my bio, I work for an angel investment company, and what I love about that space is that I get to, help entrepreneurs in South Africa. We know that our unemployment rates are so high at the moment, and so being able to be in a space where you can directly affect change, because we want more entrepreneurs in the country, we want more people to start their own businesses because there just aren't any jobs. So being able to be in a space where, I can be the middleman and assist them in getting funding, that's one thing that's been so great. But I think a lot of corporate companies as well have CSI projects that they focus on. So wherever you are working, that's something you can look into. Volunteer. I think it goes back to the same thing of we want someone to tell us what to do. But there are so many opportunities for you to just show up for someone. Wherever you are able to do that. So I think we shouldn't complicate it. Don't complicate it. If you're at a job where you're so busy and they actually don't have a CSI project that they focus on, then do it on your own. And if they do, step out and volunteer in that space. I think it's quite simple. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with everything that she said. Specifically, when you're in a space where perhaps the opportunity to take part in initiatives that give back, or some kind of community engagement initiatives, there isn't that opportunity. Perhaps the focus is more on the bottom line and just doing the next thing. If that is something that you are truly passionate about, do it. And I did it when I worked at a different university. I saw, so injustice is something, it's something that just bothers me. When I see injustice anywhere, I can't sit pretty and not do anything about it. And I just started at this institution, and I could see a problem. And I remember going to my manager at the time, and I said, how are we just letting this happen? And he said, you need to focus on other things. You are an academic, you publish or perish. So focus on your publications, focus on doing this and this and this and this. These are things that other units can focus on. And I just couldn't sit and watch it happen. And I started my own informal initiative quietly. I didn't even make a noise about it because I wasn't doing it for praise or anything. I started it quietly, and the following year, this Mandela Washington Fellowship, these applications came up. A friend sent it to me and said, no, you need to apply, Remember that thing that you're doing there? And I'm like, but it's nothing major. I'm just doing it, just to help, and it's making a difference, and I'm happy with that, but I'm not doing it for any praise. It's like, no, I think this will be an opportunity to see how you can grow this. And I applied not even thinking that anything would come of it, because I know people who've been on that fellowship program that are running what I thought were way more impressive initiatives and projects. And I got the fellowship, and I went to spend 6 weeks in the US, got to do my Olivia Pope walk at the White House. Trench coat and all, but it was in summer. But I literally was able to live the entire 2-3 months I was there. I just couldn't even believe that I was there. Having meetings with members of Congress, having meetings set up for me with people that are passionate about similar things, just from starting something where somebody was like, that's not so important. But I cared enough to just do something about it, and it opened up a world of opportunities for me that even when I came here to UP, my director, who's incredibly amazing, was like, so this is what you're passionate about, let's see how we can get you doing that kind of work still within this space. And got funding for an internship program, food bank, diversity and inclusion committee. Those are the kinds of things that I'm passionate about. I'm doing more research in that area. And it was because I knew that giving back is an integral part of who I am. And so part of showing up authentically in the workplace is also, you know, when you feel like what is happening doesn't fully serve the truth of who you are, you create those spaces and opportunities, because not everybody can just quit their job and go look for something else right off the bat. But I created that space so that the work I was doing can give me a sense of fulfillment. And just from doing that, it opened up a world of opportunities, and you get a call that, no, this Michigan State University wants you to come speak at this, and do, it's just from, and I'm like, just from one thing, you know. So again, it goes back to knowing who you are. You're not going to start being passionate about giving back if that was never part of something that you valued. So just because if you get into the workplace and all you want is to make money, and maybe one day there's a fellowship or something that's incredible and it wants you to demonstrate how you're giving back, and now all of a sudden you want to start something, they will see right through you. You know, so aligning what you're doing with, you know, making an impact goes hand in hand with your values. If you value making an impact, then in any space that you're in, you'll find opportunities to do that. Sometimes it becomes just a part of you that you don't even realize that you're actually doing something that is making an impact. You are just being you, and somebody's like, wow, you know, you really made an impact, you changed their life, and you're like, no, but I was just, no, is that really even something? You know, because it's just it has just become a part of who you are. So when we get to the workplace, we're not performing. There's no Lerato at home and Lerato for at work and Lerato for groove. Obviously, the way I handle the spaces might be a bit different here and there, but my character, when the people at groove, the people at church, the people at work, and the people at home come together to talk about me on my birthday, they will be sharing similar sentiments because my character remains the same. I'm not performing. There's only one Lerato, and that Lerato shows up in all those spaces.
I want to hop on.
Real.
And I just want to, we did not coordinate how we're all in agreement. Most of my debates tend to be political in nature, so I tend to be like, okay, great point, but I disagree with you, and I vehemently, so this is quite nice, it's very nice. Thank you once again. Now, I really want to go back to Ndabi's earlier point, because I think it's very, very brilliant. I think it's very sagacious in nature. My verbosity is coming out because I'm getting excited. But the point that you made is essentially the importance of starting where you are. I'll give a very simple example, Chair. When I was in first year, all the way up until third year, I'll bring it back to a student component, I was class rep for all of my modules. I was also class rep for 3 modules that I did not take.
Wait, what?
And
How is that even
they
possible?
knew and they just allowed me. It was brilliant. Now, I remember when I had my first meeting with the
crazy.
dean, it's like, okay, we need the class rep for history. I'm like, here. All right, public ed, here. Politics, here. Anthropology, here. And then, okay, you know what? Just write down what you're in charge of, just so that we can speed through the process. And what I had realized was, no, at my time, I don't know how it is now, but nobody wanted to be class rep, except for
Still the
politics
same.
specifically. You know that double lecture? Our whole double lecture was the politics class rep election, so that shows you. But every other module, nobody wanted to do it because they knew that if you're a class rep, you'll be the guy that everyone's calling at 10 p.m. when the assignment is due at 11, and you must magically open up ClickUp, otherwise people are going to have an issue with you. That was class rep for everything. Now, what that taught me, and this is to Ndabi's point, was the importance of skills development. Because when I was in first, second, third year, I was doing a million things at once. And I had realized that the access that it gave me to various departments within different faculties was very, very key. So when I stood up to run for example, faculty chairperson as a first year student, there was no one in my institution who could articulate what the issues were and how to fix them as well as I could, because I knew what was happening in every department. I could list it off very easily. And to her point about it just being a part of who one is, it became quite natural. And I genuinely think that's how I got through my undergrad, because I was too busy to do anything else. I was forced to understand what's happening within my module. So when we speak about a positive impact, it got to the point where, and I was very touched by the sentiment you made earlier. When I started to run all these portfolios, be like, oh, I know you from this lecture, I know you from that lecture, I've seen you in this class, aren't you my class rep? I know you don't take my module, but I appreciate how you're trying, even though you don't even know what Nascaterius fiction is. That's a law reference. And we really get to identify that a positive impact really starts where one is grounded, and I really must emphasize the importance of that point. So thank you for that. Come on, yes.
So for the point of impact, I just wanted to add on. So I am basically a tutor for the SPMA, Public Administration specifically, right? And in terms of leaving an impact, my first experience of it was at the end of the first semester when I had my final tutorial, right? So I put a Google form up saying, do you guys want me to stick with you for second semester? Fortunately, at least 96% said yes. And I was looking for the 4%, but I'm like, I'll just leave it. Then at the end of the lecture, when everyone left, a few students stayed behind and they talked to me and said that, I really thought about switching degrees or switching modules, but after having you as a tutor, you really helped me realize that this is an important module and I actually have fun doing it mainly because of you. So I just wanted to add on that point of how me as a tutor helped change someone's perspective on a degree they thought it was useless at one point, but they're willing to stick with it for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Tabang. Welcome to the party. I think just to my last little add-on as well is there's lots of pressure on all of you as a young student. And I can admit myself, sometimes I forget about that because I've done my university, I've got a job, and I think we sometimes forget how much pressure is on you to handle your classes, your this, your that. Now I need to find what my impact's going to be and my passion, and I want to have a job like it is in suits for if you're a lawyer. Life is messy, and it's again touching on the point that Lerato made. Just start learning who you are, and that will come with failures, that will come with taking a job that you really don't like, and there's no positive impact that you're making, and you're just doing it for some money, and do that, but you find who you are, you ground yourself, and then, as Ndavi mentioned, as you make your way through it, you'll start identifying something that you're passionate about, and that's what you'll feed, and that will be your positive impact. But don't always put...
I just want to say also, in my life, my wanting to help, my desire to help is what got me here. I ended up entering Miss South Africa because of my desire to help. And sometimes people don't understand that. They see me like, oh, Miss South Africa, you must think you're the most beautiful person. Like, that had nothing to do with me entering. I knew that the platform would give me the space to do more. You mentioned how I've raised almost 2 million rands for bursaries. That was the goal. That was the goal. So sometimes even the thing that you think is so little, like you went to the United States, I hope you guys pick that up, that sometimes you wanting to reach out to other people does so much more for you than it even does for them.
It's none of my business.
And you find what feeds you. Ironically, I did not believe that tertiary education students needed support when I was in university. I was one of those, I wasn't involved, I was just like, I'm gonna just do my own thing, why do people need support, I'm so passionate about now at Fly 2P. I've done a full 180 and I can sit back and I constantly think, what does success mean to a student, a first generation student? How can we help them? How can we assist them? And I've found my passion from being this negative student that was like, we adults, we don't need support. So it's a journey. Okay, so David, back to you. What advice do you have for graduates who are unsure about their career path, but want to make a meaningful contribution to society?
I don't know what I want to do with my life.
No, I feel like you are provoking me right now. Let me tell you something real quick. Now, what becomes very important is to realize that if you want to change the game and put the devil to shame, make people know your name and make them glad that you came, there is a very simple reality that we need to take into consideration. And I will speak anecdotally because I find things tend to stick a little bit more. Now, I remember when I did a shoot, and I don't know if I'm inspired by Ndavi being here. I remember doing a shoot, and I arrived, and at this stage I was upgrading my matric results. For those who don't know, I did grade 9 twice. I did grade 1 twice. I did matric twice. And I'm one of the youngest PhD candidates in my faculty. Now, the way that... Now, when I was in that particular conversation, I remember I was seated around a group of actors. I didn't follow South African television. I didn't know who's famous or who's a big deal. So I was just there. I thought we were all extras. So now we're sitting there and we're having conversations and everyone's comparing notes. Oh, I did a B.Tech here, I did a B drama, I did this. And they're like, what about you, Dave? And I said, I'm doing matric again. Yeah, great. But I'm enjoying it. And the reason why that was because my passion, much like our colleagues on the panel, has always been to help people. My dad's a medical doctor, that's what I wanted to do. He saves lives. I'm like, okay, if I want to help people, I can save lives until the trick shows me flames. Now, I have two options: do a BSc or upgrade my matric results. So I went back and I upgraded my matric results. And one day I'm seated on a bus, and I don't know where this bus is going. I just saw school kids got on a bus. I followed them. I ended up at the Gauteng Provincial Legislature for the first time. If you don't know, that's the provincial parliament. And I was told, this is the children's parliament. And I said, I did not know we had a children's parliament. So I sat in the back next to someone's little sister. They did not want me to participate because I wasn't really supposed to be there until they asked for a scribe, the guy who takes notes. And no one wants to be that guy because you cannot participate in the discussion. And I put up my hand and I said, I will be your scribe. They have never had a more vocal scribe. And eventually, when it comes time for the election, I become elected chairperson. I worked on a bill that changed the lives of about 15,000 children, and I fell in love with what I was doing. So what led me to identifying what I was sure with was, unfortunately, the process of failure, because I had failed repeatedly. Now, what was important in that time frame was how I had dealt with that particular failure. And the background I come from, I was the king of my high school. I'm in my high school's Hall of Fame at age 27. It's something I always like to brag about. But I was the king of my high school. Everybody knew me. The whole town knew me. You know, every small town is like a small town tape. I was the kid that was in there every week. So now when I don't go to varsity straight, everyone's like, oh, David's the guy who peaked in high school. Shame. Too bad. Now, I'm dealing with all of this kind of regret and fear and failure, essentially. And it was that process of continual failure that enabled me to understand what was available to me. Because if I did not fail, I would not be upgrading my results. If I was not upgrading my results, I would not have been exposed to politics. If I was not exposed to politics, I would not have had the opportunity to fall in love with civic and social and political development and engagement. So the point that I'm making is the best way to identify what it is that you want to do is to try everything that interests you. And as you try, you will try and you will fail. And it's important to get beyond that hurdle of failure, because only then will you identify what streams are available to you. One door will close, another one will open. You'll start walking through one open door, it opens another one, and eventually you start to find a way forward. And that failure is, in my opinion, the greatest teacher. So try, fail, try again, and you will win. And I'll end off this point by saying the following. There is a saying that I always like to say, and if you know me, well, I have two sayings, but if you know me, this is one of those that I always will emphasize. I look myself in the mirror every single morning and I say, I will not be defeated. I will not be denied, and I will not be disgraced. And that was what kept me going through the most difficult of times, where I would put myself up, I would have a smile on my face, and I would say, I feel sorry for the day because I got out of bed this morning. And it is possible for all of us.
I wanted to add something, but I don't know if I should after that ending.
Me too. Thank you, David. Lerato, on to you. So, In a rapidly changing world, how can graduates maintain a commitment to long life learning and adapt to new challenges in their chosen fields?
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my adult life is to stop sleepwalking through life. Be fully present in whatever you're doing, where you are, when you are there, you are exactly where you need to be. So instead of focusing on the, oh, why am I here, I don't want to be here, be fully present, be fully present, and use that as an opportunity to learn about that particular space. So when you get into whatever space that you are, you're studying for, I think one of the first things that graduates need to learn, and as somebody who's running an internship program and we learned from our graduates, is that what university does is to give you knowledge on a particular subject matter, right? Industry gives you the technical skills to perform a particular function or role. So when you walk in there, be ready to be teachable, to learn. The learning didn't stop when you acquired your degree, when you walked across that stage. That was just one phase of your learning journey, but learning continues every single day. The one thing I always tell my students is that formal education isn't the only form of education that you can get. Informal education is so important. Whether it's through conversations, whether it's through something you saw on TV, whether it's through a video you watched, or just being in a particular space, continue learning. And I think if you approach it in that way, it makes it easy. You are learning, and it makes it easier for you to adapt, to change, without you actually even noticing that it's happening. You're not really conscious of it. Because sometimes we think of school and it's like, oh, I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to sit down and do this. But if you see the world as your classroom, then you are constantly, wherever you are, right where you are, seeing it as an opportunity to learn. Just by sitting here right now, I've been going, and busy making mental notes, just from this conversation. There are certain things that I've heard, and I'm thinking, when I leave here, I need to look into that a bit more. When I drive to work, I listen to something, So literally, when we talk about lifelong learning, it's not really about what's your next degree. Should I get a master's, another master's, or a PhD, because these two are busy with PhD, so maybe I just need to get a PhD, so I'm doctor and all of that, but you don't even know what you want to do with the PhD, so it's not going to serve you because you don't know what you want to do with the PhD or the master's. But use life as an opportunity to continue learning, and as things change, be fluid, be flexible, right? So when something is changing, and you can see self-awareness as well. So if you can see that things are changing, but I'm falling short, what do I need to do to build myself up so I'm able to adapt to these new circumstances or this new situation? But if you're not self-aware and you're not able to have those honest conversations with yourself, because I'm a top student and I've always gotten everything right and I've gotten all of these awards, so right now I can't really admit that I'm falling short here, then unfortunately you are going to be the mountain that's standing in your own way. So there's an amazing book by Brianna something, it's called The Mountain Is You. I would recommend that you read it. Get the audiobook, it's cheaper. But it's amazing how we stand in our own way. You think it's somebody else. It's so easy to blame other people or that one, but the mountain is usually you. So if you're struggling to adapt, consider why you are struggling to adapt. Go back to the knowing yourself, knowing who you are. Because part of knowing who you are is not just knowing everything that's amazing about you, but really having those intimate conversations with yourself and thinking, okay, so I have this childhood trauma, and this is how it's showing up in these different spaces, and things are changing in the workplace, and I really want to move up to the next level, but something is standing in my way. I'm struggling to adapt. I'm being rigid. I don't know why. I'm procrastinating. You're not lazy. There's a reason behind the procrastination, right? So think of why it is that you are struggling to be fluid, to evolve. Because if you look at how evolution happens, it's not something that's like, bam, something goes from being one way and significantly different the next. It's gradual, small, gradual, incremental changes. And that makes it easier for us. I mean, when things are changing slowly, it's easy for you to move with the changes, to change with how things are, because it's small changes. Sometimes you're not noticing how you are changing as well. But if you are resistant to even the smallest change, then you need to ask yourself why, right? But like I said, be open to learning. The world is your classroom. You are here. I'm sure you've learned a lot, just as I have. The more you are open to learning, the more you're open to being teachable, and the more you get comfortable with just admitting that I don't know everything, and that's okay, then you'll continue to be open to learning. I always tell my students, like, I don't know is also, it's also an answer, because you don't know what you don't know. And in the workplace as well, if you find yourself in a situation where you really, you know that I need to do more to get to the next phase, but you don't know what the more is, what the more looks like. Have those open conversations with your mentor, your manager, or don't be afraid to show up as your authentic self, because that's also going to, not just to the people, that the context that you're in, but to yourself as well. And that's going to help you as well open up to, you know, what the world around you is trying to teach you. So it doesn't have to be formal. You can register for another course and have 10 belts. I know during graduation it's like 4th belt, 5th belt, and constantly wanting to come for the belts. But there are those invisible belts that you've garnered throughout your life, and you need to acknowledge those. And if you're not acknowledging those, you're missing out on so much. You're missing out on the growth. Go deeper. So I always say to my students, to my mentees, the classroom, every time we start, it's always these kinds of conversations. If you don't know who you are, it always starts there. So all these conversations that we're having, it may seem like now we've moved to a question about lifelong learning and adaptability, but it goes back to knowing yourself. It starts with you. Okay.
How many artists? 6 people.
Yes. No, such a brilliant point. And just to hop on to the train that you started conducting. First of all, I think we can all agree the lectures are lit. So I would very much like to attend one once upon a time. But I also want to add, so I'm also an assistant lecturer in my spare time. I lecture politics and international relations, first year until third year. And I remember with my second years, I took them through about 3 weeks where I taught them about what we call 21st century diplomacy, something I'm very passionate about. And I remember I did it in a very clandestine way. So I made my students study BTS, the pop group, that group. I then made them study Dennis Rodman, the very eccentric basketball player. And I said, just study how they are viewed internationally. Just have a look at that and get back to me. And I remember one of the students comes back with a video of BTS performing at the United Nations. They presented to the class and they were very surprised and they're asking, how? And if you study international relations, at the General Assembly, it's like the World Cup for diplomacy. So imagine 193 world leaders are ushered out of the room, like, hey, presidents, y'all go stand over there. BTS is coming to perform, and they come and they perform and they do their thing. And now as the students start to dig deeper, they realize that, okay, well, how was BTS in the space? They were there because they were cultural envoys of the South Korean president, which means they were international diplomats, so they were pop stars. And then they started looking at Dennis Rodman. You may remember that during the Trump administration, he managed to get the South Korean and North Korean president in the same space at the same time in North Korea. And if you don't know, the two countries are actually still at war. So now people started asking, how did this happen? Most people don't know that that was through sports diplomacy. Dennis Rodman used to go to North Korea. He would organize basketball games that opened the door. So when the Trump administration wanted a way to get in, they used Dennis Rodman. So for many students, they were surprised that, okay, well, if I have an interest in culture, if I have an interest in sports, if I have an interest in science, if I have an interest in economics, and there are a lot of diplomatic tools that are available. So the constant evolution. Now, what you find is that every field is constantly changing. So when you find your area of interest, as Gerardo mentioned, knowing yourself, you then are able to identify with the changes that are happening within your particular field. And then just to add on to kind of the intentionality behind what she spoke about, a very good way to keep up to date is simply to increase the ecosystem that you are operating in. So I love how Ndavi's starting a podcast. I really hope you'll invite me. You don't think I talk too much, but I do. She's still deciding. But for example, I get most of my information from various news sites. I watch everything from Al Jazeera to Fox to CNN to whatever the case might be, because I'm in politics and international relations. What I'll find is a lot of my colleagues and friends who might be, for example, more culturally inclined or economically inclined, they've introduced me to so very many podcasts, for example, that have increased my scope of knowledge. So if you invite, I'm of the view that if you invite me anywhere, I can speak about anything because I'm in a constant ecosystem of information and knowledge, which forces me to do a lot of unlearning, I won't lie, but that becomes very important and that helps you to keep up to date. So ensuring that you find information that is linked to what your interest is, but is also not necessarily linked to how you view what you are interested in. That is also a very good way to keep up to date with the very fast changing dynamics.
Thank you very much. So, Ndavi, I'm going to aim the next question at you, which David has slightly answered. How did you know this question was coming up? Your mention of your ecosystems and stuff, but what are some effective strategies for staying current in an evolving industry while also contributing to social change? So, what are some effective strategies to stay current in an evolving industry while also contributing to social change? So just these are quite packed questions.
It's giving Miss SA final question.
Just start with the first part, which is what are some effective strategies to stay current?
Yeah. I think they kind of already touched on this, but I think one important thing is learning to become comfortable with not knowing, right? A lot of times we don't raise our hands when someone says, okay, we need someone to do this. We're like, okay, I've never done that, so therefore I'm not doing that. But we need to learn to raise our hands to say, I will do that. And then if they ask you, have you ever done that? Say, no, but I'm willing to learn. Be willing to learn as you go. Be willing to learn on the job. And what you'll find is that you might either even enjoy that thing, it might become the thing that you always want to do, but you will learn as you do that. And a lot of times, people will remember you. Next time when they need someone for an even better position or something else, they know that, oh no, I know Ndavi might not know how to do this exactly, but she is willing to learn. So you make yourself more visible. You make people remember that there's someone we can always rely on the team. So I think a lot of us don't do that because we think, I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to look inadequate, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. But it's okay, it's okay. And the hardest day will be the first day, because you've never done it. But the next day, you'll be better, and better, and better as you go. And you would have learned a whole new skill that you can apply in another area in your life. Maybe it won't work for you now as you wish it would, but next thing you're in a different space, and then it can work for you there. So I think let's be willing to learn and be comfortable with saying, I don't know right now, but I'm willing to learn. Yeah.
I think there's
newsflash, most people don't know what they're doing, even the adults. People didn't know how to come into campus day. I was like, I don't know how to fix that. So I think it's just on all the points you've made on this section. I think it's very important, firstly, to accept feedback and not take it too personally. And we're all human. I can also admit most of the time when my boss is like, or you read that wrong in the paper, I'm like, my goodness, like that's so embarrassing. Don't take it personally. See feedback as constructive criticism, and none of us know what we're doing. I read something recently, and this is more not really career-based, but your parents are doing life for the first time as well. And I think that's, you're doing life, they're doing life, you're doing your career for the first time. You never know, and you're always learning. So just as long as you show up, you look at yourself in the mirror every day and you say, I'm not going to be defeated, I'm going to try my best, you are learning and you will adapt to your career, to your environment, and yeah.
And I think many times we stay stuck because we don't ask the questions that would help us to move forward. So this is something that recently happened to me at work, and there was something I needed to do, and I genuinely just felt like I should know this. So why, I can't ask anyone because I should know this. Why don't I know this? And what that did for me is that I was just stuck not knowing it, thinking I should know it. And then eventually I had a meeting with my mentor and I was like, okay, actually let's just be vulnerable, let's just be open. And just having that conversation opened the doors to an answer, and also reminded me that actually they also don't know this. So a lot of us don't know what we're doing, but if you stay with it and keep like being so hard on yourself, saying I should know this, you will stay in the same position, not knowing, and also not knowing that no one else actually knows. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ndavi. All right, David, back to you. We're on our last two questions, so yeah. How can graduates integrate community service and social responsibility into their professional lives, even in competitive industries?
Thank you. Man, you are really exciting. I feel like hot diggity dogs. These are awesome questions. Yes, right. So when you're speaking about competitive industries, and I think I'll start there and I'll kind of make up the A and B. So when you're looking at competitive industries, what becomes very important is to understand what do we mean when we refer to the term competition. Because competitive industries have essentially two, let me say, issue areas. The first is competition for entry, and then competition for elevation. So you'll find that you might be able to get into an industry great and you think you've made it, and then you're there for 5 years and now you're trying to figure out how to climb the ladder, but there is 10 other people trying to climb the ladder, and that's the competition you're dealing with. But then for most of us kind of in the education sphere, getting into a lot of these spaces, the competition we will deal with is mostly kind of entry-level competition. Now, what you will find is in instances of competition, the question we are really looking at is performance and who is the best performer. Now, performances are often based on what we call metrics, KPIs, which are key performance indicators, or even terms of reference. And that really depends on kind of the space that you are in. What you will find is that being able to be impactful socially within a space is one of the ways that you can elevate above that. What we are looking at in the current century that we are in is a pivot away from what we have seen in the previous industrial revolution. So I'm sure someone was waiting for someone to bring up the fourth industrial revolution. I will be the guy to bring it in, so you're very welcome. So the first industrial revolution obviously was about industrialization. The second was really about mechanization. The third was about digitization. And then now what we're looking at is really the development of technology across a much wider spectrum, which I won't get into. But along with these differences has been a change in how we view the workplace. So now workplace culture has become a very huge component of what we see in competitive environments. When you look at workplace culture, what you will find is that there is an analysis of the entry point. Do you qualify to enter? And then there is a further analysis, do you qualify to remain? It's why you'll find that in many environments, you may find that someone who perhaps is not as qualified. You know, you might have the basic requirements. You find everyone will have the basic requirements. Someone might have an honors, the next person might have a master's. Some companies might opt to go with the person for the honors simply because they think this person is a better fit for workplace culture. And this is what we are seeing heavily within the fourth industrial revolution. So then the question then becomes, what is the differentiating factor? And that factor in and of itself is how socially adaptable are you? And we see this in where we are able to place ourselves. And I'll give a very simple example. I was campaigning, you know, we had an election this year, and I was in the Northwest province. And, you know, provinces have different dynamics. So I'm going around and campaigning, and I find that the space I was in required me to get approval from the traditional council before I could campaign, because you can't go into community and just be like, hey, please support us, da 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 da. No, you have to get permission. They will want to find out, do you have permission from the chief to be here? That is one of the very important elements. And when I joined the organization that I'm with, it was purely based on, do I meet the entry requiring metrics? Now, in the very beginning of my campaign, I was in a lot of kind of the more far-flung areas. So when I would go and campaign, it wasn't that media was following me and it's all over social media. I was the guy in the corner that you didn't really see doing that much. But on that particular occasion, I sat down with one of the chiefs and I remembered, okay, I want to be socially relevant, but also want to be socially impactful. And I remembered one of the earlier social projects I did, which was in Hammanskraal, which you may know has a very serious issue with cholera in the water. And with one of the community leaders in that space, she taught me something very simple. She said, Dave, you twang a lot. And I'm like, I don't think so. She said, you do. And I said, okay, well, I'll work on that. She said, no. I like how you own being who you are. So what you need to do is when you enter these spaces, just own being who you are. And she taught me that lesson. If I was not in that social space, I would not have learned that lesson. Now, when I go and I meet with these chiefs, it's kind of the tradition is if you are from a political party and you meet with a chief, you will bring an offering, a cow, a goat, money, whatever the case might be. And we were not as financially strong. So I just came there with my t-shirt and said, hi, my name is David, and I'd like to speak to your community. And he just had the biggest laugh. He genuinely thought I was joking, and he was amused. And because he was amused, he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. You're funny. I like you. And I had access that no one in the space of politics in the entire country had. So when I came back and we started having follow-up discussions, everyone was asking, how on earth did you manage to enter such a difficult space? And I said, oh, I simply asked. And they said, well, where did you learn to do that? And I said, you know, all of those social projects I've been doing, I've learned from the people in those spaces. So when we speak about competitiveness, a big mistake we often make is we focus too much on the entry criteria. If I just get a cum laude in my degree, I will be fine because I've met the entry criteria. But we negate the importance of being socially impactful because one of two things will happen. Either much like what I've demonstrated now, you will have the skill to stand a cut above the rest, which will then influence the very same entry criteria that I spoke of, or the social work that you have done, much like Lerato's case, will be so profound that it will speak for you. And I'm aware we only have 2 questions left, so I won't delve into that too deeply, but essentially 2 things. Have I? Okay. Okay, well, I'll just summarize and say 2 considerations. The first is do not neglect the entry criteria, because that's something many people mistake, that they were saying, we're telling you, oh, a degree isn't as important. No, it's very important. Focus on your studies, don't neglect that. What we're saying is it does not end there, and being competitive is having an edge. And when you are being socially impactful, I would argue that is the biggest edge that you can have, and I'll park it there.
Thank you very much, David. So the next question, I'll just pose to Lerato and Ndavi, and it's basically just, we'd like you to share examples of how your community service has enriched your career and contributed to your professional success. So David has mentioned how he can get in there with the chief. So Lerato, I'll hand over to you, and then Ndavi.
I think I pretty much answered this question earlier on when I spoke about something that I did at work and how that took me to this fellowship in the US, coming back to UP, and I think again, just to add on to that, because of the kind of platform that acknowledged the kind of work that I was doing, you also need to know the institutions that you're in and what they value. And in the institution that I'm currently in and being recognized at that level, at that kind of a fellowship program, when I came back, I suddenly had the opportunity to make the kind of requests I didn't think I could before, and have them be granted, because I'd also proven myself valuable to the space. So we are all academics in the space. I'm employed as an academic. You teach, you do research, you supervise, you all pay, we have the same KPIs. But when you start doing something that is a cut above the rest, then your institution goes, okay, who are you? I mean, I'm the only academic in my department, and our tutors know, that does not have a PhD, because the policy is that everyone needs to have a PhD. When I applied for my job here, I was the only, I found out, applicant that didn't have a PhD. The others had the PhD, but they also did not have what I had, and that's the community engagement part, everything that I had done outside of my work, that had opened other doors for me, enabled me to become, a subject chair for the public admin program. I was the youngest staff member. I didn't have a PhD, but I was leading professors and all these, accomplished people. But again, I was doing something that came naturally to me, and that's giving back, doing work that makes an impact in society, that's work that gives me that sense of fulfillment. So I was basically I didn't even feel like I was trying too hard. I was literally just serving the truth of who I am, and that is literally me. And wherever I go, I try to make that impact. I want everyone to know that I was here, and not because I was the loudest or I did this, but the kind of impact and the energy that I left there. And so for me, it's been, and again, the kind of community engagement work that I did, it didn't start at that institution where I saw a challenge. It started long ago. Primary school, high school, serving at church. I was a children's ministry leader. I volunteered at an orphanage here in Pretoria. I used to go every single weekend to take care of the babies and cry when they got adopted because I thought they were my siblings. And it just being that person that serves, it just didn't start because I wanted to get something out of it, but it became an inherent part of who I was, and I took that part of me into every space that I was in, and it opened a lot of doors. So while everybody was focused on doing what everybody else was doing, because the textbook says to get ahead, this is what you need to do, I said, yes, the textbook is that this is what you need to do. So like David was saying, that you need the degree. The degree is important. I'm busy with the PhD because I need to get the PhD, but I am more than that. And because I acknowledge that I'm not just one thing, and central to my identity is wanting to do work that makes a positive impact in society. I find opportunities to do that, and just serving the truth of who I am in the space that I am has opened, like I said, a lot of doors for me, doors that I didn't even think existed. I didn't even know there was a diversity and inclusion committee in the faculty. And I found out about that just through starting the food bank within our department. And from doing that, you get connected to the Department of Student Affairs. I mean, I had conversations with them informally. I remember sitting with the director and saying, we had another meeting and I said, by the way, I don't like the disability unit's name. I think it's an outdated name. We don't say that anymore. And she's like, you know, we're actually planning to change it. And before that, I sat with somebody from a different office within UP that kind of deals with these kind of issues, and the person said, it's not really important. Why? You know, I work with a colleague who lives with a disability, and she's cool with, you know, people saying this and these kind of terms and words. And I said, but just because that person is okay with it doesn't make it okay. And I mean, I don't live with a disability, but again, the connections that I've cultivated with my students that live with a disability, sitting with them, having these conversations, you start seeing issues within the system that you're a part of. And I'm one of those people that do not want to play any part in protecting a system that's also, forget the word. Oppress, yes. The same system that's oppressing me or anybody else. Like I said, injustice for me, whether it's directed towards me or somebody else, I feel like I need to do something about it. And serving that value in any space that I've been in, it's just opened up a lot of doors, and more doors are opening. I mean, the meetings that are coming up, and I'm just like, is this really happening? You know, last week I got called into a meeting and I had a workshop, and I was the last person to arrive. And when I got there, it was a bunch of directors and the head of, and they put a seat at the head of the boardroom table, and they left that open for me. And I was like, can I sit somewhere there, not here? And they said, no, you need to sit there. And I sat there and I found myself literally leading this meeting and commanding the room in a way that when I left there, I could not even believe that that was me. And that's why it's also so important. I know this is not part of the question. It's so important for you to really reflect on how far you've come. Look at where you started. Sometimes just pause. Think about who you were in first year.
41.
How confused you were. You didn't even know where the centenary building was, and a third-year student sent you to the engineering side, and you're so confused. But look at how far you've come. You know, and when you start acknowledging those small wins, you actually realize that I'm actually growing and doing something and doing a lot, and it's literally because you are serving the truth of who you are. And for me, like I said, a commitment to service is an integral part of who I am. So the classroom is not just the space where I go and I teach you public admin and goodbye, but it's my impact space. So I don't need to start an initiative or do something. Just where I am in that moment is an opportunity for me to serve. And as a result of that, doors open. You know, you build connections in that space. I've had students, one of our students got his dad to support our food bank, and they brought donations. And it's because of the conversations we have in class. I don't speak to my students like I'm this person with all the knowledge in the world, you know. Obviously, I know a bit more than they do about the subject matter, but I cultivate a space where they can also teach me something, because education is supposed to be an empowering experience, and I don't want to disempower them by making them think that it's just me feeding them knowledge, but they can teach me and everyone something. So yeah, I think commitment to service, if you really are committed to service, it will show in how you show up every single day. Not when the lights are here and there's a camera there, but every single day when nobody's looking. How do you treat people? How do you help out? You know, in the smallest ways. How do you show up, even if it's just for a friend? Just that being an inherent part of your character, it's like a muscle. that you're constantly training, and when you get into the workplace, you'll now want to do more of that, and you'll see doors open for you because everybody's just doing the same thing, but there's that little something extra that you're doing, that anointing.
Wow. You know, I almost got emotional when you're like, you must look back and remember where you were in first year and how you felt and where you are now. Because I was genuinely so confused in first year. I didn't even know what I wanted to study, where I wanted to go. You do? I don't even remember me from first year. But well, you genuinely touched on everything that I wanted to touch on. But I'd say like you're saying, if you know at the core of your heart what you want to do is to help people, you don't need to see someone else doing it for you to do it. I think in the way that I was raised, seeing my parents always offer themselves up to help. I grew up with so many siblings in the house because of someone being added to the family. We can help you go to school. Just my family just always being so open. I think that's what got it into my heart that, okay, wherever I can, nothing is ever too small. And I remember in 2020 during COVID where people were really struggling, couldn't buy groceries. I decided that I'm going to reach out to a couple of friends and try raise money to buy groceries so that in December everybody can just have groceries in my community. And I remember I raised 5,000 rands, and I was elated. I was so happy. I couldn't believe that I had raised 5,000 rands to buy groceries for people. That was like the biggest thing I had ever done. And I remember some of my friends sending me messages like, wow, we're so proud of you. You always wanted to do something like this, but we didn't know how to. And I realized that so many people have the heart, but just never take the action. And so that was one monumental point in my life that also stood out when you said, look back to where you started. And this is just simply looking at the numbers and looking now, having said, raising more than 2 million rands. It's the same girl that raised 5,000 rands, and it meant so much. And right now, being able to raise so much more, the goal never changed. The goal was still the same, just helping people, bringing people up with you. Now also being back in Hatfield, I remember in 2020, I ran a sandwich drive February, and it was the month of love. I was like, let's do something for love, right? So I called the people. I used to stay at Hatfield Studios. So I brought the people together. We, I think we made 80 sandwiches. I remember the numbers, which is so funny. We made 80 sandwiches, and we just went around Hatfield handing out sandwiches to the car guards, the homeless people. And funny enough, a friend of mine, we're still friends now, he's still at the university, he says, listen, I am now running that initiative that you started in 2020 every single year since you've left the university. Last week, they were refurbishing a jungle gym in Mamelodi, and he says, all of this started because of your 80 sandwiches. So sometimes you don't even know what your small initiative can do for other people. And so that really touched my heart, that I just thought, you know, it's a month of love, let's do something. And now they do so much more than sandwiches. You know, they're rebuilding an entire thing for kids. So let's not belittle the things that we can do. And then just back to my journey with Miss South Africa, I think David spoke on this of being there available socially, right? I think a lot, I won the public vote, if some of you don't know, but I won the public vote. And for me, what stood out with that was that people felt seen through my journey. Because not only because I represent the story of a girl who comes from a village and, you know, humble beginnings, but because people actually saw me with them. You know, I was the girl who was there with you, who will sit down with you, have a conversation. The girl who, when she's handing out a sandwich, will have a conversation as to, how did you get here? You know, sometimes people just want to have a conversation, know that you're there. In one of my drives, I spoke to an elderly lady, and she was telling me about her 16-year-old daughter who used to go to church with us. I was asking her, where's your daughter? She's like, no, she's inside. She has a child now. And I was utterly shocked. And it just reminded me how kids not being exposed to proper education, kids not having extracurricular activities to participate in, not being exposed to opportunities that they can pursue, how much that can entirely change your whole life, you know. And so it's that conversation also, when I got to sit in rooms like this when I got to a platform like Miss South Africa that were in my mind, in my heart, sparking me to say that something needs to change. Something needs to change. For you to know where to start making a change, you need to be on the ground. That's why when you say you went to speak to them, you speak to the people. That's how you know. You can't, people sitting at the highest chairs, highest levels, never know what to change because they don't know the real problems. So it starts with you standing up, going, being a part of every single thing, because when you finally get that opportunity to be in a big room where people are listening, you have the opportunity to make the biggest change. And so with that, tied with my education, there's so much more that I've been able to do. I mean, I did an initiative with the JSC. When I got out of university, I wanted to work for them just as a graduate. And now we're doing an entire thing, running an entire initiative alongside the companies I wanted to work for. So all the little things you're doing are not little, they literally pile up and nothing is wasted. So whenever you feel like, oh, I'm unsure about this, I don't know if I want to work here, where is this going to help me, where's this degree going to take me, I shouldn't have studied this, some way it'll come. No experiences, no knowledge, no education is ever wasted. All of that can come together and you will be able to do so much more than you would have been able to do without it.
Thank you so much, Ndavi. Yeah, they've summed it up. They've said the things, done the things.
He's highly
Um,
impressed.
And I think it's just, if I go back to the panel topic, which is navigating the postgraduate landscape with purpose and impact. I think right now where you as a tertiary education student are sitting, I would say focus on the navigating part. All three of these exceptional panel members have navigated their way through life, and doors have opened they never thought would open. They identified where they want to make impact, where they want to make change, where they see injustice, and they've navigated their way to their success. And I think we all want to chase success and cross that finish line so desperately. But I think significance is more important than success, because they're on the ground and they have impacted people and they are significant to people. And that has led to their success. So it's not always about success, it's about significance. And I think on that we can not wrap it up, but the gifts and then also just a Q&A. I don't know, I'd maybe like to just open up casual, if there's anyone in the audience who has any burning questions for any of our panel members, it doesn't necessarily have to be on this topic. If you just want to know anything. I'm going to just stand up and then give you the mic.
Hi everyone. I have two questions. Sorry, don't mind if I read from my phone. So firstly, do you feel like we've gotten to a point in South African society where your network, as opposed to your transcript or achievements, is what gets you employed?
Right, thank you. Great question. Yes. There's a number of reasons for this. I will say what happens is your network is crucial to your employability, because your network is what gets you into the conversations you need to be in to get employed, although it is not exclusive from one's qualifications. So what you'll find is you can have access with your qualifications, you can have greater access through your network, but if you only rely on the network in the absence of your qualifications, there will be a lack of longevity. So many people try to get around a lot of the processes we have. They perhaps don't pay as much attention to the education, and what you'll find is it's very short-lived. So yes, it is a lot more important, but does not negate the qualification.
Just to add, literally yes, everything. Just want to also direct you back to the beginning of the conversation where we spoke about what we mean by networks as well. Because I know a lot of the times when people have this kind of conversation, they're talking about people in high places. Do I need to know the CEO? Do I need to know somebody whose father is something? But remember how this conversation started, and the emphasis on the people sitting around you, literally anybody could also have the information that you need to get into a particular space. I know that I've sat on interview panels during my time working in corporate and then in academia as well. And even one of the jobs that I got, it was purely through a referral. And the person who referred me to that institution was not even high up in the institution. The person was a candidate attorney at the time. And what they had, they had a referral policy in their institution because they're looking for people that align with the institutional culture. And they know that through an interview, you could tick all the boxes and you could present yourself as this amazing person on the day, but they don't know if you will really, live up to all the promises you made in the interview. So, but literally somebody that we're not even in the same university. At the time, I had just lost a job, not really lost a job, but long story. But I wasn't working for a long period of time. And this person calls me and says, there's this opportunity in my institution. I remember when you were at UP, you used to do this and this and this, and you started a student society, and you're so passionate about this and that. And I know you're not in this field, you didn't study for this, but I think you'd be amazing for this. And they trusted her because she's in the institution and aligns with, the brand and the culture. So, and when I came, I already had that going for me. They had other people that had applied because they saw that, the ad, but I had somebody in the institution who co-signed, and I was able to get the job and thrive, did very well there, and only left because I did not feel like, it was in alignment with what it is that I wanted to do. And at the time thought, oh, this was maybe a bit of a waste, but I really loved that part of the job. And 6 years later, I'm literally doing something, running a program that has to do with exactly what I was doing in that space. So literally the people that you're sitting next to, I don't want to be all churchy, but look at the person next to you and say hi.
Thank you so much. And my second question is, when seeking employment, you're judged on who you advertise yourself to be, but you're also judged based on your fellow job applicants. In a world of relativity, how do you not succumb to the pressures of comparison and feeling less than?
Who would like to?
Okay, geez. Okay, so I'll first talk on comparison, and I touched on this earlier, but a lot of times, not just in the workspace, but in life, when we compare ourselves, we always view the other person as bigger, as better, as more experienced. So you're always going to lose the game of comparison. And secondly, let's say it was you and the girl right next to you, both are sitting in for an interview. You think she's going to kill it. She thinks you're going to kill it. So it's all a mind game. You need to tell yourself, you need to believe what she believes. So you need to believe that I am going to kill it. I am worthy of this position, and I'm going to do my very best to get this. And I think this is something I had to deal with my personal journey as Miss South Africa. You can imagine being surrounded by the most beautiful, intelligent women, and we all want the same thing, right? You're surrounded by them each and every day, and all you see is their strength. All I see is, oh, she kills the walk. Oh my gosh, she knows so much about this industry. She knows this, she knows that. And you can talk so much that you are shrinking yourself so much. And that time, nothing of you actually changed except your own view of yourself, which is very important. When you step into a room, you need to view yourself as the highest person there, but not in a way of pride, but just in a way of, I believe in myself, and your position doesn't change anything about who I am. So it's very much a mental game and how you show up, because we can have the very same qualifications, but if I've shrunk myself so much mentally that when I step into the room, I sit like this because of everything that I've said to myself. When she steps into the room and she's told herself that, you know what, this job is mine, she walks in and she sits like this. She's already got her hand over you.
Absolutely, and just to add to that, I always say that nobody can beat you at being you. There's nobody that can be you way better than you can do it, right? There's only one version of you. There are many Leratos in this world, a very common name, but there's only one of this version. And when you get invited to an interview, it doesn't matter who else is going into the interview with you. You've been selected for the interview because they've seen something in you. So, and the best way to win in these kind of competitive opportunities, like when you have to go for an interview, is literally just to show up as your authentic self. Like I said, I've sat through a lot of interview panels, and sometimes it's not the most qualified on paper candidate that gets the job. It's usually the person that shows the most heart, shows the most willingness to learn, that presents themselves as their authentic self, right? So we get a true sense of who you are, and even the things that you would see as flaws, they actually work to your favor because we're like, we actually felt like we know this person. As opposed to somebody who felt like it was more of a performance, but this was, it felt like this person was a lot more honest. And I remember having this conversation in a meeting, and one of the directors said, you know, with graduates these days, we employ the one thing that we look at is attitude. It's not, yes, I mean, you'll come with your qualifications, and I had all these badges on my blazer and all of these things, and you know, when you send your email, you've got this very long signature with all your positions and all of that, but the attitude. With our internship programs, there are people who literally on paper tick the boxes, but I said absolutely not. This person is going to be a problem. Their attitude, the way they showed up. Some of our interviews, all of them actually, were online, and there was this one guy. He did not have the best interview. He didn't. But he was dressed like he was going to the most important meeting of his life, and this is for an internship program. A lot of the others were quite casual, and it was like, you know, with some, when you said switch on the camera, they're like, okay, wait, I think there are technical difficulties. And then when it went on, you see a scarf around, and when the person moved up this way, you could see the pajamas underneath. So they were planning on having the interview that way. But this guy had dressed up. And after going through, I think we had like 60 interviews throughout, I think, the course of like 3 days. So I'm tired. And this guy shows up, and he's dressed up in a suit, and he's at home, and he's talking, and he's got pages. He's paging through. When you ask him a question, he starts paging through, and we're waiting for him to find the answer so he could read it. But I'm like, he was prepared. So he prepared answers, he showed up, and he fought his way through that interview. And at the end of that interview, I said to the panel, I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to fight for this one. And in his institution right now, in the public institution that he's in, we've gotten feedback that he's one of the best performing interns there. Because of the attitude that he had, I could see just from engaging with him that he may not have all the right answers, but he's got the right attitude. So that's my 2 cents. Do you want to add your 2 cents?
Yes, just multiply that by 3. Being your authentic self, I'll just add, because I know time. And another important element is being comfortable in being your authentic self, and I'll just leave it there.
So we have 6 minutes left, so I'll allow 2 more questions.
Yeah, mine's really quick, and it's just building on firstly what you said about people finding you're the same person in every environment you go, but then also building in, you know, your energy when you speak, and even when you came in, you could already see it's not just when you speak, it's just how you are. You're very engaging and very, you know, you enunciate very clearly. And I wanted to ask, is that something you had to practice or do or is it just naturally who you are? Because I find sometimes when I do give my very best and I try and be engaging and stuff, it gets very tiring, and you end up being one person at some events or to some people, and then with different people they say no, he's very quiet or doesn't be responsive. So I wanted to just ask, is that something all three of you practice to engage, or is that just who you are and naturally you've just always been like that?
I think for me, it's just naturally who I am, and I love that my students are here so they can attest to that. They'll know that I'll pass by their offices and be like, hi, so what's going on in your life? But it's just naturally who I am, but it has not always been accepted in some spaces. In some spaces, I remember working at one place where everybody kept to themselves. So there wasn't really a lot of talking, a lot of engaging, and I'm the kind of person who likes to talk and engage. And I remember my manager at the time saying, I only arrived, I literally just started the job, and she said, of all the people here, I think you could take over from me in the next 5 years. And there were people that had been there for 10 years and plus. But you talk too much. And we don't talk here, right? So now I had to think, do I change who I am? Do I adapt, right? And betray myself? Or do I stay true to myself and have them adapt to who I am? And they adapted. Because I can only be me. I'm not trying to be, I don't try to be bubbly, I don't try to be engaging. That is just how I am. If I had been standing outside for a long time, I would have started talking to whoever was standing there, struck up a conversation, and by now would have told you how many siblings they have and what course they're struggling with, and directed them to where they can find help, and just connecting with people, right? For me, connecting is very important. So again, it's just who I am, and I would encourage you to continue being who you are. In some spaces, it may not be something that people are comfortable with, but that is who you are, and in the spirit of adapting, they will adapt to how you are. And I think David mentioned an example of going to, I think it was in Hammanskraal, where somebody said he's got a twang, and and he didn't need to change who he was. It was just, okay, because you have this, and I have a younger brother who works in construction and stuff for one of the government departments, and he says when they go to some of these areas, they need them to speak vernac, because if you come with your twang or something like that, people will just be closed off. The community is not going to want to work with you. But I love that in your situation, the advice was not to change who you are, but how to be who you are within that context, being conscious of the context that you're walking into. So sometimes it's not really about, it's not changing who you are even though you're not being accepted, but also then understanding the nature of that context and how you can be yourself within that particular context. Yeah.
Quicker than you. So growing up, I was very shy. Like, even when I did my first pageant, my sisters were like, so you spoke in front of people? And I was like, yeah, I also don't know how I did that, right? And even now, I'm still not a woman of many words, but I think I've taught myself that what I have to say matters, even if I don't say it in the longest 15 minutes or whatever, but I know that what I have to say matters, and that's why I'm willing to step out of my comfort zone and speak to people. And what you're saying about in other rooms being like, oh, this is so draining, I've experienced that too. And what I've come to realize is that certain rooms drain you. It's just, you're in a room specifically where it's not necessarily where you thrive, the conversation doesn't flow easily, maybe you're forced to be there, maybe it's a work situation. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not the same authentic person. It just means that that space is not necessarily for you and requires more work for you to actually have a flowing conversation. And I would say for me, before a speaking engagement, I am such a curious person. So I will speak to people because, like she said, it's good to connect. I love to connect. Even yesterday, I flew back from Cape Town, and in my flight, I got to know this man and his entire life story, not because I was forcing a conversation, but I'm very curious, and I love to speak to people. So some situations, you might feel like, ugh, I have to push it out of myself, and then other times you find that this is so easy because you are in your element, and that's okay. Yeah.
Right, I will attempt to be very brief. Perhaps we take the next question and I'll just add this response in that.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
So throughout the day, you guys was talking about being authentic and being your true self, but I really just wanted to know how to like balance having a student mindset in every environment and like not being undermined or being looked at as someone that is incapable. That is like, I wanted to know how to truly navigate with everything that you guys said. Okay.
Right, I appreciate that. It's a very good question, and I love it because it also touches into how I was going to respond to your question. Right, two things I want to mention. The first is behavioral patterns, and the second is what we call psychometric tests. I'm going to be very brief. So essentially, we have, ways in which we behave according to our personalities, right? And then we also have instances where our behavior falls outside of our personality types, and this happens to most of us as people. Now, with me, I am more extroverted than I am introverted. And I only found this out when I took a psychometric test. And what these tests will basically indicate is everyone is on a spectrum in terms of introversion and extroversion. And we make the mistake of thinking that being extroverted is being outgoing and being introverted is being shy. It's not the case. It has to do with what energizes you. When I took this test, I saw that out of 10, I am 7 towards extroversion and I'm 3 towards introversion. And when I discovered that, identified why it is, there are times I just don't want to talk to people. Not that I've changed who I am, sometimes just, you can imagine I'm engaging all day, every day. The average day I finish around 11 p.m. And I spend all day just talking to people. So when I get home, I'm tired, and my family knows that. When I get home, they just let me sleep. And it's not that I changed who I am, it's that I've identified what energizes me, which is why when I get up in the next morning and I go around people, I'm just so excited and I'm energized. And this is part of who I am. And it's why I don't need to pretend or fake, and why if you meet me, I'll always be in this mood. Now, to your question, and I want to draw the very distinctive link. What becomes very important is to understand how to ensure you are always performing at your best. Because I have a teacher who once told me that your best today may not be as good as your best yesterday, but so long as you gave your best, it is enough. Now, operating with any student mindset, the difficulty we have is we do not always feel like we have given our best because we do not know what our limits are. So I've understood that I cannot be up and at 'em all the time. There are moments where I need to recharge, and I've started taking that more seriously. So now when I enter into a space, I never walk into a room and you will not remember who I am, what I spoke about, and the way that I made you feel. Now I'm going to leave you with this very last point, and I was waiting for the very last question to make this point. And if you know me, you know what I'm about to say, and that is that I hold the firm belief that we have the ability, the capacity, and the capability to loosen the shackles of mediocrity that have bound so many to complacency. And because of that, every day we will give our best. And when we give our best, we know that we will be #blessed. And when we are #blessed, we know that good things are coming next, and we will feel good that we just passed the test. And when we give that kind of effort on a daily basis, we have that security of knowing no matter what happens, I have given my best. And that is the best way to navigate. That was the fastest I could try.
Thank you so much. If you have any further questions, I hope our panel don't disappear. You can just chat to them outside. We do have some drinks and food to help yourself too. And without any further ado, we would just like to say thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Lerato. And thank you, Ndavi, for taking the time this Saturday to join us and share amazing wisdom, pointers, things to think about. Yeah, I think that's it. Saban, your event.
I'd just like to say again, thank you to everyone who was here. Thank you to the audience who came in to watch the event. Thank you to PTBY for helping us with the camera stuff. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our lovely MC, Stalio Jonker. You did amazing, man. Thank you to my partner in crime, Leandra Haldenes. Thank you so much. And lastly, thank you to our panel members again. We really appreciate you guys for coming. And thank you to the people on the live stream. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.
Oops, end the stream. End it. It's there, go get it. Go